All right, in three, two, and
Well, on tonight's Concerned Clergy radio show, we're going to be talking about news. Yes, the president of the Concerned Clergy, Pastor David W. Green Sr., and we're going to be talking about tonight local news. What news would you like to really see gleaned, and what is it about the reporting that we're seeing that either you're troubled with or you'd like to see more of that? And for tonight on our conversation, we're going to have guests from, I'll call it a new initiative, the Indiana Local News Initiative. It's new, and they are wanting to get input and feedback from the community. Want to know exactly what you want to see in regards to news and how they can be of value to the community. So we just want to invite on tonight. We're going to have from the Indiana Local News Initiative, Miss Ebony Chappelle. She's going to join us, and Pastor Green, she's going to share a little bit about news, which, you know, as we talk about news, Pastor Green, there's always, in most folks' mind, there's a certain skew, or folks only look at it from a certain particular lens. And we're hoping that, you know, as we dive into our conversation on tonight, we can not just talk about, well, you know, what's new in news, but help people understand how to get the most from the news that is out there, Pastor.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, news is important. So I'm excited about hearing what Ebony and this group is looking to do in terms of news. Because uh, just yesterday was a historical moment, right? Donald Trump is being indicted. This is a former president, so these are major news items. Uh, what do you do with that? What do you do with that from a local perspective? And what is it people want to see and hear? And how do you approach that? Those things are critical. They're they're history making.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and bring in our guest on tonight. We have Miss Ebony Chappelle. Once again, she's joining us from the Indiana Local News Initiative. Let's go ahead and bring in Miss Ebony. How are you this evening?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you again, Reverend Alexander and Pastor Green, for having me on the show.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about what you're doing, what your role is there. You know, however you want to kind of set up, you know, the beginning of our conversation. Feel free, just dive right into it and share. You know, give us an idea exactly what is the Indiana Local News Initiative.
Absolutely. So, I am very new to this role. I have been with the Indiana Local News Initiative for a little over a month now. So, I come from this world. I was the editor of the Indianapolis Recorder newspaper and the Indiana Minority Business Magazine. I worked in radio. I actually worked for Radio One Indianapolis for a short time, hosting community affairs shows on Hot 96, which is a different station at this point, but the FM station 106.7 and AM 1310 slash 92.7 that we're on now. So I did that for a little while, and I've, been connected to community organizing and grassroots organizing for quite some time. So this role just feels like a great mesh of all of my skill sets and my passion as well. My role is market director. I am the second employee that's been hired so far. Shout out to Ariana Beatty, who was unable to join us tonight, but she is the community journalism director. And what we're doing is called Indiana Local News Initiative, like you mentioned earlier. And this organization will focus on building a newsroom that is deeply connected to the community and providing a service to people that are underrepresented in the news right now, and also creating opportunities for collaboration with other news outlets, because there are a lot of people in the community that are doing really good work. Um, Wish TV, for example, Indianapolis Recorder, so many others that are doing work to cover really important things that are going on. But because of the nature of the industry, the resources aren't always there for them to serve the community in as many ways as they would like to. So, one of the things that we're going to do with this initiative is collaborate with one another to serve central Indiana and eventually branch out into rural communities, which are considered news deserts because a lot of their local news doesn't exist anymore at this point. So, they're getting their news from whatever outlets are closest by, and they're going to focus a lot on what's happening in those major cities. So unless it's some egregious crime or something like that, a lot of the everyday important things that are happening in those communities are going uncovered. So I've talked a lot already, but I want to open it up in case you guys have any more specific questions. But yeah, so that just gives an overview of how this came about and what we're doing. An Indiana Local Initiative is under the umbrella right now of the American Journalism Project, which is a nationwide, excuse me, organization that stands up news entities and communities all over the nation and helps to empower those communities when it comes to their news gathering and information.
Well, Pastor Green, I think Sister Ebony mentioned a phrase there, and that's, we have another desert. She mentioned there being news deserts for local news, being able for local communities to be able to be kept abreast on local news, and just being at best connected to, either a major city or just a major news outlets on what they're seeing. That just goes to, once again, having accurate information being reported and shared in those communities, pastors, when you do have those deserts.
Well, I certainly agree that there's a desert. I'm looking. I want to ask for clarity: is this a coalition amongst existing news outlets? Or are you guys going to be doing what, a new radio or new newspaper or new what? Or is it the bringing together of these existing entities?
So that's a great question. We are building a newsroom, and it will be a 25-person newsroom focused on central Indiana. So that is one of the major things that we're doing. Ariana, our community news director, is going to be building a program called the Documenters. So the Documenters exist in other places across the country. Cleveland, for example, has the Cleveland Documenters, and those are everyday citizens that are paid to go to municipal meetings, take notes, and then those notes are turned into news articles and databases and things like that that people can access. So that's another tier of what we do. Another part of that is working in collaboration with existing entities to share news. So if we're doing, for example, we have a huge election coming up, and let's say that a couple of these outlets want to work together to cover that and cover it from all these different angles, that could be an example of what that collaboration looks like.
Okay, so this can potentially, like, these documenters, they document something, somebody professionally edits and gets it ready to go, but the recorder may say, "Hey, we want to air that story as well, or share that story, or on one of the other outlets in our city," and so then they would kind of borrow it, kind of like um, a lot of people borrow chalkbeat stuff now in terms of
Uh huh.
education. They don't. Yeah, IBJ goes out. It's a really a chalkbeat reporter. They're just recording it in IBJ, and so you guys would be an entity that somebody might, hopefully somebody grabs and says, okay, because we want to have more local um, news out from people right here in the community. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely.
Do I have that
Yeah,
right?
so
Okay.
that's one example of what that could look like. But the documenters, I just want to be very clear about that that's something a little bit different. So that's where we would take everyday people that are concerned citizens that are interested in what's happening in their community, and we would pay them, for example, to go to the city council meetings and to take notes, and then those notes would be turned into something else later. But as far as the news sharing, like you just mentioned, as Chalkbeat as an example, that's another example of things that we would be involved in.
Excellent.
You mentioned earlier, Ebony, the climate of news now.
Hmm.
The climate of news now is, what you all are trying to do. And once again, that's highlight what's going on from a local level. That's pretty much going to the wayside now. The climate is everything is, syndication. Is big. You're not getting any local flavor. There's not resources, money that I'll say the big boys are spending. Where can our local, folks such as yourself, how can, what resources will be there for you all to be able to do what you're trying to do and then to maintain that?
Yeah, so that's a big question because, as you just stated, there are big, huge entities that are very well funded that take up the lion's share of what we understand news to be. Um, but we all do have these people, and this is going back to the point about the documenters. When you look at social media for what's good or bad about it, there are those people that help to keep you abreast of what's going on in your local community, and they do it just out of the goodness of their heart and because it's something that they're interested in. I mean, even the platform that we're on right now, the concerned clergy could have invested your resources in something else, but you saw fit to invest in having some sort of platform to spread what's going on locally through radio, as your medium. So, with the Indiana Local News Initiative, I'm happy to report that the team that has been involved early on trying to get things up and running has raised a little over $10 million to help kick off this effort that we're doing here in the city. Beyond that, we are a nonprofit, so we'll be doing what nonprofits do, and that's going out and raising money to help support our cause.
We do have a call on the line. Let's go ahead and get in. Larry. Larry.
Pastor Green and President Pastor Green, Reverend Alexander, and Ebony. Listen, this is a good idea, right? Roselle Boyd always used to say, ignorance is a choice. You can choose to be informed. We need to have some kind of organ here in this town that goes to the city-county meetings and lets the public in on what's coming down, like Proposal 149. They have a proposal, Pastor Green, wherein they are transferring jurisdiction from 13, 14-year-old kids to the federal system, right? And they're going to do mandatory sentences, 5-year mandatory sentence, no bail or anything. So that's coming down to 2. Also, they're collecting on the Violence Against Women and Children's Act. Just imagine all those guys who are out there who have a misdemeanor battery for domestic violence, right? So if you get caught with a gun or anywhere around a gun, you go before a federal magistrate and you get 5 years mandatory sentence. So there's a lot of people out there who forgot about those convictions or those plea bargains that they've cut, that it's going to come back on you now. Zach Myers was on talking about that the other day. But, I think his deal is to fill up the stockades that they built down in Kentucky. Because what they do is when they convict these 14 and 15-year-old boys and girls, too, of these gun crimes, that's the big issue right now, they also take them and to Kentucky to stay in these stockades for 5 years, and you won't be able to communicate with your kids and nothing else. And you know the bad thing about it, Pastor Green, they had black people down there supporting that, along with the racist other white people that claim to be against guns, but are just a part of the program that they're getting right now to sweep the streets of people with domestic violence convictions from 83 on up. If you get caught with a gun, or somebody can tell them that you have a gun anywhere in the house, they will pick you up, transfer jurisdiction to the federal courts. There's no mercy over there, no bail, and mandatory sentences of 5 years, because the magistrate's going to say, hey, did you do this? He's going to read the statute and say, you got caught with this? Well, what was the circumstances? In our law system, we don't take circumstances under consideration when you're standing for a judge. All they do is read the statute, and if you've done it, there you go. So
all right.
We need to be warning our community about this.
All right. Thank you for your phone call. So there,
I
Larry
wanted to
says,
say something really quick.
we'll go right ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you, Larry, for your call. I always appreciate the fact that Larry is so involved and engaged in what's going on. The last time I was at the city council meeting, I saw him there. So those are exactly the type of people, the people that are paying attention to what's going on, the people that care, that we want to be a part of this with us through the Documenters program. Right now, we are gearing up for our very first workshop to train those people. It'll be happening at the end of August. And there's information on our website. Reverend Alexander, I'll share that website with you. It's localnewsforindiana.org. And if you click on the page that says what's new, the very first blog has information in there about the Documenters program. But yeah, I mean, he brought up an excellent point. Ignorance is something that is used as a weapon against our community all the time. So the more that we're in the dark about things, don't understand, it has an extreme detrimental effect on us. And that's what we heard through our listening. Before Indiana Local News Initiative got launched, we had someone come in town and travel all around the state interviewing people to ask them what they thought about the state of local news, where they felt that they were not served the best, what things were missing. And a lot of times what came up for people is the fact that when policies are happening or when legislation is happening at the state house or anything, that affects their daily life, they wouldn't find out until it was too late for them to do anything about it. So he really touched on a lot of the points that really inform why we do what we do.
And I know, Pastor, a lot of things that you specifically are involved with, speak out on. It seems that point right there is a common theme. Folks just not knowing about what's going on, and there being a select few in the overall community in a lot of cases for some of these important issues that can really affect the average individual, the average family. A lot of folks aren't even aware that these things are going on or being debated in chambers or in committee or any of that.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, Indiana, one of our biggest challenges, policies that are in place that get created and implemented without really community involvement. For the recent ones have been, the gun law changes. A lot of people complained after the law had passed in terms of permitless carry. And so there's a number of policies that we have in place that get passed related to housing, related to public safety, related to economics. And we're most typically complaining after the law is in place. So now it's even more of an uphill journey because when they were initially being discussed, whether that was in the Capitol or in the city county building or some other place, our voices weren't there. And they count on that. Those decisions being made, knowing, okay, well, we can do this because they're not going to know by the time they know, figure it out. It's way after the fact.
You see you all being able to fill a void there, Miss Ebony, and your approach and you getting, things such as, this proposal that Larry mentioned and, so many others, especially during the legislative season that folks are not aware of. Would you have that component as well?
Yeah, that'll definitely be a component of what we do. So in our newsroom, the goal is to have 25 reporters in that newsroom, which in today's world, and when you look at other things here in the city, that's pretty robust newsroom, especially to start out with a nonprofit organization. So we plan to have, our eyes and ears connected to everything that's affecting the everyday person living here in central Indiana and what, would help to positively impact their life or potentially, challenge their way of being and just make sure that they're informed and also empowered in that as well.
We're going to have to take our first break for the evening, but we've got lots of questions. Some have heard, okay, that the documenters, that is a paid position. There's interest there, well, does that entail? Also in regards to the ultimate leadership for the Indiana Local News Initiative, who's the, editor, publisher, all of that. So that the community is aware of that as well. But if you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can call in if you have a question or comment for our guests, 317-239-1310. But you can also put a comment in our Facebook feed as well. But once again, feel free to call in if you have a comment or a question. Let's go ahead and go to our break. You're listening to the Concerned Clergy Radio Show on AM 1310, 92.7 and 95.1 FM, The Light. Welcome back to the Concerned Clergy Radio Show. I'm Reverend Tony Alexander, and I'm glad to be joined by the president of the Concerned Clergy on tonight, Pastor David W. Green Sr. And we have, as our guest for this evening, we have Miss Ebony Chappelle. She's joining us from the Indiana Local News Initiative. That is a new news group that is they're wanting to make sure that they are providing some local flavor to the news. And they've talked about in our first segment, talked about how they can enlist you as a documenter. And from what we've heard thus far, that could be a paid position that you may be interested in. We have Miss Ebony that's been sharing that. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, feel free to call in to the radio station 317-239-1310. You can also comment in our Facebook feed. So Miss Ebony, kind of share what exactly, a little bit more on that documentary role, and also give us an idea of things such as the managing editor or however that structure is with the local news initiative.
Yeah, so I'll start with the second part first because that's really easy to answer. We don't have one yet. So this is a startup, and we have just 2 employees right now. It's just myself and Ariana Beatty, who is our community journalism director. So we are actively in the process of hiring an editor-in-chief. We will also be hiring a CEO at some point, and other people to help run the organization. And then, of course, that newsroom that I mentioned earlier. So all of that stuff is presently in the works. And our goal is to officially launch the outlet toward the end of 2023. As far as the documentaries are concerned, that is what we refer to as a civic side hustle. So it's something that you can do just on the side of your regular job. If you have a day job, or let's say you're retired and you just want to use a couple of hours a week to do this, you can do that as well. But what it looks like is people that are interested will sign up, and they'll go through a series of trainings led by Ariana, and then afterwards they'll be able to go on to our website that's specifically built for the documenters, where they can take assignments on their own. So it's very self-guided. We are seeking to hire hundreds of these documenters, but we're going to start out with a small group starting out with that training that's happening toward the end of August. But yeah, so it's something that people can do in their free time. You can take a couple of meetings a week. There's also an option to attend a lot of these meetings virtually, because the city council, for example, those meetings are recorded. So there's an opportunity to do that as well, which makes it a little more accessible to more people. But yeah, so you'll get paid for those assignments, and those notes turn into things that our reporters can use when they're reporting on things. It can also be used to create databases where everyday citizens could go on and find out what's going on in their community as well. So there's so many possibilities with that program, and it's one of the things that I'm most excited about coming out of the Indiana Local News Initiative.
And Ebony, what do you see as the ideal viewer, reader for this initiative? What's it going to look like?
Yeah, so right now, based on what I know and based off of our listening sessions, it's going to be for the people that really care about what's going on in their community. I would say that's the thing that unites everybody. There's no specific demographic I can point to, because even in our listening, we had people from all different racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, age backgrounds that participated in telling us what it is that they would like to see. So I really see this being for those people that care about what's going on, but maybe they are a little disenchanted because they don't see themselves in what's being presented to them. So we've been very, very intentional in the time that I've been there in talking about what that looks like to make sure that the community is showcased and they feel like when they read these things, it sounds like them, it looks like them, it feels like something organic that came out of the community. So more of a conversation as opposed to them being talked at or talked to. Yeah, in a way that's, not, I'm trying to find my words here, but in a way that's not generative or collaborative. Yeah, so our approach with this is coming from a very um, grassroots, community based, collaborative perspective.
And so is there any, I mean, like when I hear what you're saying, I know youth often feel like their voice is not heard. So is there something
Hmm.
intentional about reaching the youth? I know this is often what you stated, also something that especially black people, minorities would feel. So
Hmm.
is there something about this initiative that targets that group? Because the black people's concern, for example, say if it's housing, which we're more likely to be renting, etc., that's different from white people who are much more homeowners. So how do you bridge those gaps, I guess?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So, first, with the youth, that's something that's been very important with us as well. So, Ariana and I have had a lot of conversations about creating an opportunity for youth to be documenters potentially, but to definitely be involved in a news gathering. So, that's something that we've had a lot of discussion about. And I'll be clear again in saying that this is brand new. Ariana started 3 to 4 weeks before I did. I've been there for a month. So we are actively building this thing. Our biggest thing right now that we're promoting is the Documenters program and getting people signed up for that. We're also going out into the community. We'll be out at a lot of events this weekend. We'll be at the event in Flanner House. And sorry for people that are watching, my cat just decided to jump in the video. But we'll be out at the block party at Flinner House. We'll be stopping by Art in the Park later on Saturday. Friday night, we'll be at Grapevine, which is an event that's held every first Friday at Cleo's Bodega. Also, Ari is hosting office hours at Flanner House and at the Central Library downtown. So we're just out and about letting people know that this thing is coming, gathering ideas from people about what they would like to see and going from there. You mentioned earlier about the Black community and how certain things disproportionately impact us. Um, Housing being the example that you use, and there's several others that we could point to. But yeah, there will be an emphasis in focusing on how these issues disproportionately affect certain communities in Indianapolis because Black people, I mean, we make up 30% of the city, if not more at this point. So yeah, our storytelling has to reflect what the community looks like. Indianapolis is also becoming increasingly diverse with a lot of immigrants coming over and people from all different parts of the world. So where are they? Where are their stories and the things that, concern them? So yeah, that'll be a big part of our focus is looking at those spots that our community makes us aware of that are missing and kind of need to be uncovered a little bit more.
We do have to go ahead and take our final break for the evening. I did find the documenter's interest form, so we're going to go ahead and we'll share that with the audience as well. We've been listening to Miss Ebony Chappelle as our guest on tonight, talking about the Indiana Local News Initiative. And if you'd like to ask her a question, you can still do so by calling into the radio station. That number is 317-239-1310. Or you can also comment in our Facebook feed. But once again, we're going to go ahead and go to our break. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, once again, call in to the station, 317-239-1310. You're listening to the Concerned Clergy Radio Show on AM 1310, 92.7 and 95.1 FM, The Light. Welcome back to the Concerned Clergy Radio Show. I'm Reverend Tony Alexander, and I'm joined by our President, Pastor David W. Green Sr., and our guest for this evening. We have Miss Ebony Chappelle from the Indiana Local News Initiative, and she was just sharing in regards to the Documenters program, in which they are looking for folks to be out in the community and just documenting what's going on. And with that program, there is an interest form that you can get that is on the Indiana Local News Initiative website. And it's a simple form that it tells you that documenters are paid $20 an hour to attend the meetings, that there is a meeting that is going to be upcoming August the 24th. That's going to be the orientation at 5:30 at 10 East Arts. The address is 3137 East 10th Street. And then there's a short survey information form there, and it gives you a couple of a few options there in public meetings. If you're interested in the city county council meetings, the committee meetings, the Indianapolis Public Library Board, Charter School Board, the Indianapolis Public School Board, those are meetings there that you can express interest. But if you have something else, you can also do that. So once again, those are that is on their website there, the interest form, if you are interested. We do have a caller that has been holding. Let's go ahead and bring in Anonymous. Oh, so I guess we don't have our caller. All right. So with that, Sister Ebony, once again, the documenters, $20 an hour. And if someone's interested, how soon will they get notified? You know, if something's coming up, they want to, be a voice or be one that, provides information, kind of give us, what exactly is that process once they fill out this interest form?
Yeah, so once you fill out the interest form, Ariana will be in contact with you. Ariana Beatty is our community journalism director. So you will be contacted and you'll receive any other details that you need for that meeting on August the 24th. After that, I believe that there will be a couple of different training sessions to just walk people through how to take notes at these meetings. There are some templates available. There's a lot of resources available, so don't feel like you have to come in knowing anything. I think the biggest requirement is that you have an interest and a desire in positively impacting your community and attending these meetings and taking notes. So we will do that. And this is just the first round of that. We'll be taking interest from documenters as we continue on. Because, like I mentioned earlier, we want to have an entire core of these people running through the city and keeping us up to date on what's going on.
I know, Pastor Green, one of the things I've always made note of recent years is that in addition to local reporting in general, we also have a lack of what I would call investigative reporting. That's where you have, reporters that are actually, diving deep into what's going on, whether it be IMPD or whether it be, the city county council. You would normally have those people that are already embedded in those areas. And not only are they reporting what those entities are giving out, but they're also keeping their ears to the street, if you will, knowing what's actually going on that may not be reported.
Well, yeah, that's a huge need in our community. Obviously, if you look at all of our major stations, and nothing, no slight on any of them by any context, but you see the strategy. And my conversation with some of the more senior ones has always been, well, it's always new faces. So we come into the Indianapolis space, people come here, work 2 or 3 years, 4 years, and then they're off to another city, which means they don't always have the history of what was going on 5 years ago. I mean, so when they give you the story, I mean, they do have the facts in the moment, if you will, but they have nothing to compare it to. So I'm hoping that a lot of these people that will pursue being a documentary and capturing those have some history in the city that they can share and help with somebody who's writing the story. You might want to consider these things that were going on, because there's context here. And so you have to understand what's the context. And it's hard for a reporter who just moved in here from Fort Wayne or from South Bend, and you stay here for just a moment, to always have the context of what's the broader context. Why is this group of people mad? Well, it turns out they've been mad for 10 years. Okay, so if you don't have the context of what upsets them, the frustration they have, then you can somewhat miss that. And I think that certainly I always want younger people to have opportunities, etc. But we're not seeing reporters stay in positions long, regardless of station. Whether you look at Fox, whether you look at WTHR or WRTV, it's a continual change of people. And so we do need some, while we need some of that freshness, it needs to be balanced with some people who have been around for a moment that have some context and say, now, while you're going to ask this question of these people, here's a broader context of what's been going on in that community with these people, et cetera, or these organizations for a moment, well-rounded, if you will. So you need a balance of that. You need some freshness, some energy, but you also need what's the broader context that goes beyond, in many of these stories, what you get in a 2-minute clip. And you might not even know enough to ask the right question. And that's why you need some people documenting, capturing notes who would know, hey, here's something I need to ask because I've been in the city for 10 years. I've lived in this community for 10 years. I've been going to the library for 20 years. That person can ask a better question than a new reporter out of Memphis who just goes to a library meeting and says, why are these people mad, and just trying to capture it. It's more effective if some people who use the library and they ask some questions, you'd be like, okay, now, because they know they got experience, and so you want
Hmm.
some balance there. You want the fresh eyes, but you also need somebody who has the context.
Absolutely. Yeah, that you hit the nail on the head because that is an issue not only in our community, but all across the board because of the nature of news. People not being able to sustain a career for very long because the resources are just not there for them to be able to do so. So then they have to move on and go into other industries or move around and find where they can make a livable wage to support themselves. It's a very, very hard living, and a lot of people don't know that, out in front because it doesn't appear that way to the public. But it's a pretty hard living, especially depending on the circumstances of where it is you happen to be employed. But with all that being said, we want to hear from people of all different ages and all different backgrounds so that we can have that knowledge and that history from the past being included so that we can tell a very well-rounded story about things that are happening that are challenging, but to also celebrate the beauty and the culture and the fantastic things that are happening in our community as well, because that's something else that's missing sometimes. It's telling some of those good stories because there are a lot of people working really, really hard to make Indianapolis a top tier.
What would you say was I'll say the biggest concern that came as a result, at least from the community and their desire in regards to news reporting in general, or what all did I would say glean from that gathering?
Yeah, so we hosted two community listening sessions. Uh, they were actually last week. I want to say last week and the week before, but we're going to hold so many more of them coming up soon. So stay tuned for that. But what we heard from people was a lot of what we talked about tonight. People shared that they want to know about these policies and these things that are happening in the legislature while they still have an opportunity to be engaged. A lot of people asked about the elections coming up because they want an easy way to find out what are the candidates, and what their positions are, what the major issues are, that are going to be up for a vote during our election season. Election season. Sorry, I got a little tongue tied there. But and people were also very concerned about their communities being underrepresented when it comes to the positive things that are going on. So we talked a little bit about IMPD earlier, and crime has come up in this conversation. Quite a few people are disenchanted with the fact that their community is painted with this broad brushstroke of danger and crime and murder and mayhem when that isn't how they see their community. So there was a lot talked about, positive things that are going on and creating space for those things to be highlighted as well.
Okay. Pastor Green, you have anything for Miss Ebony before we close the program out? I think that is a huge task. There's so much that I would say we're missing. There's so many voids, if you will, in the reporting of news. So much, folks, they really don't know if what I'm hearing is it real news or is it quote unquote fake news? I mean, now where can you go and get a trusted news source? So I think if anything else, if we can, have someone that's reporting facts, folks that are in the meetings reporting what's going on at the meetings, that'd be a great start.
Well, I would just say, I just want to see the leadership at the top support the Ebonies and the people that's doing that work. Because the things I talked about earlier, that comes from leadership. right? You know, you need people to have livable wages, etc. You have to be committed to that approach to say, I value people, I want them to stay, and hopefully we won't get some executive at the top that says, well, yeah, I really want every a couple of years, and then we'll just get somebody else that's cheaper. And that's not how you do quality news consistently. So we need to be hopefully get a leader that says, I value these people that are doing this work because we want to have quality and great news out there. What's that mean? These people do have to make money. Otherwise, somebody is going to entice them away and they're going to be gone. And we don't want that.
Yeah. That's an excellent point, Pastor Green. So I would say from your mouth to God's ears, I feel very, very supported and confident about this work, due in no small part to the fact that the community has always been so supportive of me and so supportive of the different initiatives that I've been involved in. So I feel, 100% supported and ready to go when it comes to that. So we will need the community voice to be right alongside us, right in concert with us as we go about doing this work that's going to ultimately improve things for us all. So I'm really excited and I appreciate this conversation tonight.
Well, once again, we thank you for joining us on this evening. You just heard from Miss Ebony Chappell from the Indiana Local News Initiative. Once again, the documenters orientation is going to be on August the 24th at 5:30. That's going to be out there on the 3100 block of East 10th Street. They're inviting you to join them then. One more time, your email address, Miss Ebony.
Yes, so my email address is ebony.chappell@localnewsforindiana.org.
All right. Well, thanks again. We hope everyone enjoyed our program on tonight, and we ask you just to continue just to trust in the Lord and be blessed.
God bless everyone.